Mr. Webb, Mr. Vice President, members of the Senate and the House. This is a very proud and a very happy occasion for all of us here. And I think it's a proud and happy occasion for all Americans everywhere. We intended to conduct this ceremony this morning outside in the Rose Garden. However, Major Grissom and Commander Young found their landing in Washington this morning only slightly less wet than their landing in the Atlantic Ocean on Tuesday. So we meet now in the famous East Room of the White House. I think it's fitting that we should assemble for this purpose in this historic and hallowed room. For 165 years, this room has witnessed great moments of our history, and it's known great men of our past, from John Adams to John Kennedy. A sense of history is present strongly here today. All of us are conscious that we have crossed over the threshold of man's first tentative and experimental ventures in space. The question of whether there would be a role for man himself in space is already firmly and finally answered, and answered affirmatively. Man's role in space will be great. It will be vital, and it will be useful. Equally important, we can comprehend now, better than we ever have been able to in the past, that the role of space in the life of man on Earth will also be great and vital and useful. So in this springtime of 1965, it seems incredible that it was only 4 springtimes ago when young Americans, including Gus Grissom, first flew into space. We have come very far in a very few short years. Yet the quickening pace of our advance will carry us far beyond this point of achievement, even before one more year passes. The program we pursue now is a planned and orderly program with but one purpose: the purpose of exploring space for the service of peace and the benefit of all mankind here on this earth. We are not concerned with stunts and spectaculars, but we are concerned with sure and with steady success. Since we gave our program direction and purpose 7 years ago, many such successes have been achieved through the efforts of a great American team, which now numbers 400,000 men and women in industry, on campuses, and in government. And this team is inspired and stimulated and led by a former Marine and a great public servant, Jim Webb. We have come here today to honor just 4 of these 400,000 men on his team. We honor Gus Grissom, the first man to make 2 flights into space. And we honor both Gus Grissom and John Young as command pilot and pilot of our first 2-man Gemini spacecraft flight. We honor the director of Project Ranger, Mr. Bud Schurmeier. He has led the team which produced for us and for all mankind the most dramatic advance in our knowledge of the moon. We also honor one of this nation's most dedicated and most valuable public servants, the top career men of the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, Dr. Robert Siemens, As general manager of our civilian space effort, Dr. Siemens has performed absolutely magnificently. All Americans and all free men are in his debt. Through these four, we honor all who have and who are contributing to America's effort to advance the horizon of human knowledge. This is a happy day in our nation's capital. It is a proud day for Americans everywhere. And I know it must be especially proud for the parents and the wives and the families of these two brave, patriotic, gallant, exceptional young Americans. And it gives me much pleasure to be able to have them here in this first house of the land. And now I want to thank each of you for coming here and participating with us. And I'm going to ask Administrator Webb to read the citations for these outstanding pioneers of the new age of space. Mr. Webb.
Mr. Schurmeier, will you please come forward? I think you're going to do it on this side. Turn so you face the audience. Mr. President, as the National Aeronautics and Space Administration builds the complex machines and instruments to which you have referred, our trademarks are conservative engineering design and boldness in concept, with each thrust forward a stepping stone to the next. Mr. Harry Schurmeier, as manager of Project Ranger, exemplifies the great personal qualities of courage and competence in the execution of these, and he is an important member of the outstanding team at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory of the California Institute of Technology. This citation is to Harris M. Schurmeier. The National Aeronautics and Space Administration awards the NASA Medal for Exceptional Scientific Achievement to Harris M. Schurmeier for significant contributions to science and engineering. As director of Project Ranger, he made outstanding contributions to the 3 highly successful Ranger flights to the moon, which collected more than 17,000 high-resolution television photographs of the lunar surface, vastly increasing man's knowledge of our nearest neighbor in space. Mr. President, will you award the citation and the medal?
Mr. Schurmeier's friends call him Bud. A big moment for him.
Major Virgil I. Grissom.
Come over here and pick those needles out and put them in there.
5'7" Gus Grissom standing next to 6'4" President Johnson.
In the old days, when a test pilot took a new airplane on its first flight, he was never quite sure what would happen. But today, in the large multi-engine aircraft which this nation is producing, as a result of a forward thrust in aeronautical research and propulsion and in guidance and all of the associated technology, the pilot knows the airplane will fly. His job is to determine what needs to be done to put it into service at the earliest possible time. The same is true with respect to our new systems of spacecraft. That is the real significance